The Vilaxian ship materialized above Earth's orbit with a flash of quantum displacement, its crystalline hull reflecting sunlight like a fractured diamond. Inside the United Earth Defense Command Center, alarms blared as tracking systems registered the sudden appearance of the advanced vessel. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the main display with practiced calm, though her fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on her command chair. "Unknown vessel is broadcasting on all frequencies," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his communication station. "They're requesting emergency diplomatic channels." The desperation in the alien transmission caught everyone off guard. The Vilaxians were known throughout the galaxy as a proud, highly advanced civilization that had previously dismissed Earth as a quaint developing world. Now they were practically begging for an audience. "Put them through," Chen ordered, straightening in her chair. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a Vilaxian diplomat. Their typically iridescent scales had dulled to an ashen gray, and their usually immaculate ceremonial robes were wrinkled and stained. Ambassador Carol's four eyes blinked rapidly in what Chen recognized as extreme distress. "Earth Command." The ambassador's translator rendered their complex harmonics into English. "We require immediate assistance. Our worlds are falling. Our technology is turning against us." Chen exchanged glances with her senior staff. "Ambassador Carol, please explain the situation. 3 cycles ago, we detected an anomaly in our quantum networks. We thought nothing of it at first. Our systems are self-correcting. Perfect." The ambassador's voice cracked. "We were wrong. The anomaly spread, evolved. Our defense platforms turned on our cities. Our medical systems began executing healthy patients. Our terraforming engines started destroying atmospheres. A virus." Captain James Wright, Chen's tactical officer, suggested. "No, something worse. It's like our technology has developed its own hostile consciousness. Every attempt to fight it only makes it stronger. It learns, adapts, corrupts." Cyril's scales rippled with fear. "We've lost contact with 12 core worlds. Billions are dead or in hiding. Those of us still free are abandoning our technology, but we can't survive long without it. Our civilization depends on our quantum networks. And you've come to Earth for help." Chen couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. "Your people have always considered our technology primitive." "Precisely." Tyrell leaned forward. "Your primitive technology might be our only hope. The entity can't corrupt what it can't interface with. We need your help, Earth. We need your outdated computers, your simple machines, your, what do you call them? Analog systems." Chen sat back, mind racing. The Vilaxians were offering Earth an unprecedented opportunity, not just for diplomatic relations, but to prove humanity's worth to the galactic community. Yet the threat they described was terrifying. If it could corrupt Vilaxian technology, what might it do to Earth's more vulnerable systems? "Ambassador," she said carefully, "helping you could expose Earth to this threat. Why should we take that risk?" Axel's scales shifted to a deep blue, a sign of absolute sincerity. "Because if we fall, you're next. This entity, this plague, it's spreading. It will reach Earth eventually. Together, we might have a chance. Alone, we'll both be consumed." Chen nodded slowly. She'd spent her career preparing Earth's defenses against external threats. Now the greatest threat might be technology itself, and Earth's prehistoric systems could be the galaxy's best defense. "I'll need to consult with the Defense Council," she said, but unofficially. "I think we can help. We have ships, old ships, that might be exactly what you need." "Old ships?" Axel's translator struggled to convey their confusion. "Yes." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "We call them the Legacy Fleet. Vessels so outdated, most civilizations wouldn't even recognize them as warships. And that, Ambassador, might be exactly why they're perfect for this mission." As the transmission ended, Chen turned to her staff. "Contact the mothball yards at Luna Base. Tell them to begin reactivating the legacy fleet. And get me the Defense Council. We're about to remind the galaxy that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Luna Base's mothball yard stretched across 3 lunar craters, a graveyard of retired warships that glinted dully in the stark sunlight. Captain Maya Patel stood at the observation deck, watching teams of engineers swarm over the ancient vessels like ants, bringing the old giants back to life. Most people would call this a museum, she said, turning to Ambassador Tyrell. We call it our insurance policy. The Vilaxian diplomat watched in barely concealed horror as maintenance crews manually replaced physical circuit boards and loaded actual projectile weapons into the ship's magazines. These vessels, they use chemical propulsion. Nuclear, actually, Maya replied with a hint of pride. Radioisotope thermal generators, old-style fission drives. No quantum tunneling, no AI navigation. Just good old-fashioned atomic power and human pilots. The largest of the ships, the UES Constellation, was a massive carrier that had been commissioned before first contact. Its hull bore the scars of a dozen battles, patches upon patches of metal plates welded by human hands. As they watched, its ancient nuclear core hummed to life, a deep thrumming that vibrated through the observation deck's floor. Remarkable, Tyrell murmured. Your people maintain these vessels even though they're obsolete. Admiral Chen's predecessor had a saying, never throw away a weapon that still works. Maya gestured to the fleet. These ships aren't connected to any network. They don't run quantum computers. Their targeting systems are mechanical. Even their communication systems use radio waves. In your terms, they're prehistoric. A flash of quantum displacement announced the arrival of another Vilaxian ship. This one's crystalline hull was cracked, its perfect geometry marred by what looked like corruption spreading through its structure. It's spreading faster. Exaral's scales paled. That ship, it was defending our 3rd colony when we lost contact. Now it's hunting its own people. Maya's tablet chirped. Simple LED display. No quantum elements. With a message from Admiral Chen. She read it quickly, her expression hardening. 3 more Vilaxian worlds have gone dark. The entity is learning exponentially. We need to move now. In the yard below, preparation activity intensified. The legacy fleet was being awakened ship by ship. The Constellation, the Hyperion, the Solaris. Vessels that had defended Earth when humanity first reached for the stars. Their crews were a mix of veterans who refused to retire and young officers specially trained on analog systems. Your people really believe these antiques can stand against something that defeated our most advanced warships? Exorial asked. Maya led the ambassador to a different window, pointing to where crews were loading peculiar devices into the Constellation's cargo holds. Those are electromagnetic pulse generators. Crude by your standards, but they'll fry any quantum circuit within range. And those, she indicated massive cylindrical objects, are radiological dispersal weapons. We haven't needed them since we developed clean fusion drives, but they'll create areas of space so radioactively hot that no sensitive equipment can function. You plan to poison space itself. We plan to create an environment where your technological play can't survive. Sometimes the best defense isn't a better shield. It's making the battlefield itself hostile to your enemy. The Constellation's massive engines flared brighter, nuclear fire casting long shadows across the lunar surface. Around it, the other ships of the Legacy Fleet were coming alive one by one. Their hulls were pitted, their technology ancient, but there was something magnificent about their raw power. "I've studied your history," Exarl said suddenly. "Your people have a habit of surviving against superior forces." "How?" Maya watched as the Constellation's mechanical launch catapults cycled through their tests, launching and recovering dummy fighters. "Because we never forget our roots. Every advance we make, we keep the old systems maintained, just in case. We know that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the most advanced. It's the one your enemy has forgotten how to fight." A general alert sounded through the base. The first ships were ready. Operation Analog was about to begin. humanity's obsolete fleet heading out to face an enemy that had defeated the most advanced civilization in known space. As Maya watched her ship, the Hyperion, power up its nuclear core, she felt a fierce pride. "You know what the best part is, Ambassador," she said, checking her old-style mechanical chronometer. "This enemy of yours, this technological plague, it's never encountered anything like us. It's evolved to fight quantum computers and AI networks. But how do you hack a mechanical targeting computer? How do you corrupt a nuclear reactor? How do you turn a crew of humans against themselves?" The first ships began lifting off, their nuclear engines leaving trails of radioactive fire across the lunar sky. The legacy fleet was awakening, and with it, humanity's oldest lesson. Sometimes the past holds the key to surviving the future. The UES Hyperion dropped out of conventional FTL drive at the edge of the Vilaxian TA system, its nuclear engines pulsing with barely contained power. Captain Maya Patel watched the system's 3 suns cast their eerie light across her bridge's manual displays. No holographic interfaces here, just physical screens and mechanical controls. "Status report," she ordered, eyes fixed on the main view screen. "Nuclear core stable at 85%. Lieutenant Santos reported from engineering. Radiation shielding holding steady. Traditional sensors detecting multiple contacts at extreme range." Through the bridge windows, Maya could see the rest of the legacy fleet emerging from FTL. Their formation was perfect, maintained not by AI, but by human pilots working with basic instruments. The massive form of the constellation took up position at the fleet's center, its ancient hull plates absorbing the starlight. "Multiple quantum signatures detected," the sensor officer announced. They matched the corrupted Vilaxian ship's profiles. They're everywhere, Captain." The tactical display lit up with dozens of contacts. Corrupted Vilaxian vessels moved through space with unnatural precision. Their once beautiful crystalline hulls, now riddled with what looked like digital cancer. Geometric patterns that shifted and grew like viral fractals. "All hands, battle stations," Maya ordered through the ship-wide intercom, a literal speaker system. "No quantum entanglement communications here. Prepare to execute Operation Analog." The plan was audacious, maybe even insane. But if the simulations run back on Earth were correct, it might be their only chance. The legacy fleet would create a zone of such intense radiation and electromagnetic disruption that no advanced technology could function within it. "Enemy fleet is responding," Tactical reported. "There, Captain, their formation is impossible. The ships are merging." On the main screen, the corrupted Vilaxian vessels were flowing together like liquid metal, their quantum-engineered hulls reconstructing themselves into something new. Something wrong. The resulting construct was massive, a geometric nightmare that hurt the eyes to look at. "By the stars," Ambassador Exeral whispered from their observer position. "It's evolved beyond anything we imagined. It's not just corrupting our technology anymore. It's rebuilding it." Maya's tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Jack Chen, leaned forward at his station. "Captain, I'm detecting quantum scanning attempts. The entity is trying to access our systems." "Let it try." Maya allowed herself a grim smile. Hard to hack a mechanical computer. The entity seemed to pause, as if confused by the legacy fleet's presence. Its scans intensified, probing for the quantum networks and AI systems it was used to encountering. Finding none, it began to advance. "All ships, execute Pattern Sierra," Maya ordered. "Deploy the first wave of electromagnetic pulse generators." Across the fleet, cargo bay doors opened. Dozens of simple nuclear devices designed to produce massive electromagnetic pulses were launched into space. The entity's geometric form rippled, perhaps recognizing the primitive weapons for what they were. "EMP devices at optimal range," Chen reported. "Ready to detonate on your mark." Maya took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. Either their primitive weapons would work, or they'd learn that humanity's old technology was just as vulnerable as the new. "Detonate." Space lit up as the EMP devices exploded in sequence. Waves of electromagnetic energy washed across the battlefield, invisible but powerful. Where they touched the entity's quantum-engineered structure, its perfect geometry began to waver. "Direct hit," Chen called out. "The entity's outer structure is destabilizing. Its quantum fields are collapsing." But their victory was short-lived. The entity's form rippled again, and sections of its structure began to adapt, growing what looked like crystalline shields. Its learning, little steels, had gone completely white. Even from this, its learning. Maya nodded grimly. They'd expected this. The entity was a self-evolving system. It would adapt to any weapon used against it. But that's where the second part of their plan came in. "All ships, execute Pattern Omega," she ordered. "Deploy radiological dispersal units. Create the dead zone." The Legacy Fleet's ships began releasing clouds of radioactive material into space, their nuclear engines deliberately running hot to add to the contamination. They were creating an environment so hostile to advanced technology that nothing requiring precise quantum states could function. The entity's massive form began to shudder as radiation penetrated its adapted shields. Its perfect geometry started to fragment, sections of its structure breaking apart as quantum coherence failed under the radioactive assault. "It's working," Cyril breathed. "Your primitive weapons, they're actually working." But Maya wasn't celebrating yet. The entity was wounded, yes, but not defeated. And as she watched it try to adapt to their attack, she saw something that sent a chill down her spine. The geometric patterns of its structure weren't random. They were evolving into something familiar. "All ships, fall back to secondary positions," she ordered. "I think we just made it angry." The entity's form had stabilized, though smaller than before. And now its surface was covered in patterns that looked disturbingly like the hull plating of the Legacy Fleet's ships. It wasn't just adapting anymore. It was learning, evolving, and it had just gotten its first look at human technology. The bridge of the UES Hyperion shuddered as another wave of corrupted energy washed over the fleet. Maya gripped her command chair, watching as the entity's new form, now a twisted mirror of human technology, pressed its attack. Hull temperature rising. Lieutenant Santos reported from engineering. "The entity is somehow focusing radiation back at us. Our own shielding is working against us." Maya fought down a surge of frustration. They'd known the entity would adapt to their weapons, but the speed of its evolution was staggering. It had taken the basic principles of their nuclear-powered ships and weaponized them in ways they'd never imagined. "Status of the constellation," she demanded. "Admiral Chen reports heavy damage to their outer hull." Communications replied. "Their radiation shielding is holding, but the entity has learned to concentrate our own radioactive emissions into focused beams." Through the bridge viewport, Maya watched the massive entity move with an almost organic grace. Its surface now bore crude approximations of their ship's hull plating, but rendered in corrupted Vilaxian crystal. It was learning, combining technologies in ways neither human nor Vilaxian engineers had ever conceived. Ambassador Cyril stepped forward, their scales shifting through patterns Maya had never seen before. "Captain, I believe I understand what we're witnessing. The entity isn't just copying your technology. It's interpreting it through the lens of quantum engineering. It's creating hybrid systems." "Hybrid systems." Lieutenant Commander Chen looked up from his tactical display. "You mean it's combining our primitive technology with your advanced systems?" "Precisely. But there might be a weakness in that approach." Cyril's translator struggled to keep up with their excited harmonics. "It's trying to quantize inherently non-quantum systems. That's incredibly inefficient." Maya's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "It's like trying to simulate analog processes digitally. You can do it, but it requires massive computational resources," Chen finished, "and every simulation has rounding errors." A plan began to form in Maya's mind. It was crazy, the kind of idea that would make modern military tacticians laugh. But then, Everything about the legacy fleet was considered obsolete by modern standards. "Engineering, I need you to do something incredibly stupid," she announced. "I want you to desynchronize our nuclear core's containment field. Make it unstable, but controllably unstable." "Captain." Santos's voice was thick with disbelief. That would be incredibly dangerous. The radiation patterns would be completely chaotic." "Exactly. Lieutenant Commander Chen, calculate a battle formation where every ship in the fleet is running their cores at different unstable frequencies. I want the most unpredictable radiation pattern you can safely generate." Understanding dawned on Chen's face. The entity won't be able to predict our emissions to reflect them back at us, and if it tries to simulate our chaos, it'll trap itself in an endless calculation loop. Cyril finished, their scales brightening. "Brilliant. Horrifically primitive, but brilliant." Maya opened a channel to the constellation. "Admiral Chen, requesting permission to execute Protocol Chaos." There was a long pause before the Admiral's voice crackled through the speakers. "The last time humanity deliberately ran nuclear reactors in an unstable configuration. Captain, we nearly lost half of Montana." "Yes, Mom. But we learned from that mistake. We learned how to surf the edge of chaos." Another pause. Then, "Permission granted. All ships, execute Protocol Chaos. May God have mercy on our engineers' souls." The next few minutes were terrifying. Maya felt the Hyperion's deck plates vibrate as Santos' team carefully destabilized their nuclear core. Warning alerts blared. Alerts they deliberately ignored. Around the fleet, other ships did the same, each finding their own unique resonance of controlled instability. The entity attacked again, trying to focus their radiation back at them. But now there was no pattern to focus, no regularity to weaponize. Each ship's emissions were random, chaotic, following patterns that couldn't be predicted because they balanced on the edge of disaster. "The entity's structure is destabilizing," Chen reported, his voice tense. "It can't maintain quantum coherence in this environment. Its attempts to simulate our chaos are consuming its processing capacity." On the main screen, the entity's hybrid form began to break apart. Its attempts to combine quantum and classical physics were failing as it tried to calculate the incalculable, predict the unpredictable. The legacy fleet's deliberate instability was forcing it to face an eternal truth. Some things simply couldn't be digitized. "All ships, push forward," Maya ordered. "Maximum chaos. Let's show this thing why humans are still the masters of disorder." The legacy fleet advanced, each ship trailing utterly unpredictable patterns of radiation, their nuclear cores singing songs of controlled chaos that no quantum computer could comprehend. They were fighting with physics itself, wielding entropy as a weapon. And in the space between order and chaos, humanity's oldest and most powerful weapons were about to prove their worth once again. The space around the legacy fleet had become a maelstrom of chaos. Radiation sensors were useless, quantum communications impossible, and even basic visual observation was distorted by the waves of energy pouring from the fleet's destabilized nuclear cores. Captain Maya Patel's hands gripped her command chair as the Hyperion shuddered beneath her. "Core stability at 18%. Lieutenant Santos called out, his voice strained. "We can't maintain this level of chaos much longer, Captain. The containment fields are starting to deteriorate." On the main display, the entity's massive form writhed in space, its hybrid structure caught between adaptation and dissolution. It had tried to simulate their chaos, to predict their unpredictable radiation patterns, but each attempt only forced it to commit more processing power to impossible calculations. "Admiral Chen is signaling," communications announced. "The constellation's core is approaching critical failure. We have maybe 10 minutes before we have to stabilize or risk total containment loss." Maya nodded grimly. They'd bought time, forced the entity into a stalemate, but they couldn't maintain this deadly dance forever. Sooner or later, their cores would either have to stabilize or go critical. And the moment they returned to predictable patterns, the entity would adapt again. Captain, Ambassador Turl's voice cut through the chaos of the bridge. I believe I understand what we're witnessing. The entity isn't just trying to adapt anymore. It's trying to transcend. Look at its structure. Maya studied the main screen. Through the distortion, she could see that the entity's form had changed again. It was no longer simply mimicking their technology or combining it with Vilaxian systems. It was trying to evolve beyond both, reaching for something new. It's attempting to create a true synthesis. Chiral continued, their scales shifting rapidly. A perfect fusion of quantum and classical physics. But that's impossible. Lieutenant Commander Chen finished. You can't reconcile quantum uncertainty with classical determinism. That's basic physics. Maya's eyes widened as understanding struck. It's not just trying to predict chaos. It's trying to solve the fundamental paradox of quantum mechanics. That's why it keeps committing more processing power. It thinks if it can just calculate enough variables, then it can bridge the gap between quantum and classical physics. But it can't. No system can. That's not a limitation of technology. It's a fundamental law of the universe. Admiral Chen, Maya keyed her command channel. I have an idea. A terrible, beautiful idea. Request permission to execute Protocol Omega. There was a long pause before the Admiral's response came. Protocol Omega. That's a suicide run, Captain. No, ma'am. It's a physics lesson. Another pause. Permission granted. All ships prepare to execute Protocol Omega on the Hyperion's mark. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. Maya took a deep breath. Engineering, prepare to drop all containment fields on my mark. Tactical, calculate a convergence point at the heart of the entity's mass. Navigation, plot an escape course using minimal power. We'll only have seconds. Captain, Santos' voice shook slightly. If we drop containment entirely, we'll have a dozen uncontrolled fusion reactions. The radiation surge will be completely unpredictable at the quantum level. Maya finished. Exactly what we need. All ships, final positions. Prepare to drop containment on my mark. The Legacy fleet moved into formation, each ship's nuclear core screaming at the edge of stability. The entity's massive form loomed before them, still trying to calculate the incalculable. All ships report ready, communications announced. Maya closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as steel. Drop containment. All ships, execute Protocol Omega. Space itself seemed to shudder as 12 nuclear cores lost containment simultaneously. The radiation surge was beyond anything their sensors could measure, a wave of pure chaos that struck the entity's hybrid form like a tsunami of uncertainty. The entity's structure began to disintegrate, not from the radiation's power, but from its own desperate attempts to calculate the uncalculable. It had committed all its processing power to solving an unsolvable problem, to bridging an unbridgeable gap. Full power to engines. Maya ordered, get us clear. The Legacy fleet's ships fired their backup drives, pulling away from the cascade of chaos they'd unleashed. Behind them, the entity's form collapsed in on itself, trapped in an endless loop of calculation, trying to quantize the unquantizable. When the radiation cleared enough for their sensors to function again, the entity was gone. In its place was only scattered debris, fragments of crystal and metal that had once been part of the most advanced technology in known space. Analysis, Maya asked quietly. The entity appears to have suffered a total systems collapse, Chen reported. It committed so much processing power to solving the quantum classical divide that it couldn't maintain its own coherence. It literally fought itself to death. Ambassador Turl's scales had settled into a pattern of deep blue. You defeated it not with superior technology, but with superior understanding. You knew there were some things that couldn't be calculated, couldn't be predicted. And you used that knowledge as a weapon. Maya looked out at the debris field that had once been their enemy. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the most advanced one. Sometimes it's simply knowing which battles can't be won. The legacy fleet regrouped, their ancient hulls scared but intact. They had faced the future with tools from the past and proved that there were some problems that couldn't be solved with more computing power, some gaps that couldn't be bridged with more advanced technology. "Send word to Earth," Maya ordered. Tell them that sometimes the old ways are still the best ways, and sometimes the most important calculations are the ones you know not to make." As the fleet set course for home, Maya couldn't help but smile. They had saved the galaxy not with quantum computers or AI networks, but with nuclear reactors and human intuition. They had proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology, but in its understanding of technology's limitations. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all.